Some people say, how much should government be shrunk? I think many Americans have the sense that it should, but they don't know how far. I think we need a government small enough to fit inside the Constitution.
What I don't want is people to be able to claim that they have some power to tax me for their harebrained scheme, be it whether it's health care, or the bailout, or a collective farm. Libertarians are for the idea that there's a limitless sense of the possible for the individual who is unencumbered by the constraints that the state tries to put on us in our education system, in our private business. But the idea that the state should exercise control is almost irresistible to most people. Many people will say, you know, that makes sense. I can see what you're saying, but there's just one thing. And then there's some damn one thing that they really care about. And because the state does that one thing, maybe the state says, I think people should have to wear motorcycle helmets, and they do that, and so I'll accept all this other stuff.
The French traveler and philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville in 1831 wrote a book called Democracy in America. And in that book, he talked about the way that America worked better than most countries, and he would include in that his own country at the time, France. And the reason was that private voluntary organizations all over the United States would spring up, people would work together on problems. What he was worried about was something he saw happening in France, and it's gotten worse since. And that is that people look at a problem and they say, you know, the government should do something. As if they've somehow anthropomorphized government. The government is us. Saying the government should do something means we're absolved of any responsibility to act. So it's not the Constitution is outdated. What we've lost sight of is the sense of individual responsibility that originally the Constitution required of all citizens. That's what Republican with a small r means. Each of us has a sense of duty. So it's not everyone depends on the police to defend their homes. It's everyone is sufficiently armed to defend their own home. And if we need the police, if we need the military, okay, but it starts with us. So we're not absolved of responsibility, not of moral responsibility and not of practical responsibility. What I think has happened is we've forgotten the ideals that led the American founders to say we're going to trust individuals. We no longer trust ourselves. Most people would say, yeah, the government should leave us alone, but there's 5 or 6 things that they'll then say, yeah, but I don't like that. We should regulate that. Motorcyclists, they should have to wear helmets. I mean, I don't really want to wear a helmet, but other people aren't as smart as I am. Or 21-year-old drinking age, even though their kids may drink when they're 18, but that's different. There's all sorts of regulations that we pass. Speeding laws on the highways. Most of us speed, but we also think there should be laws against speeding. It should be enforced. I think that one makes sense. But we go to the extent of wanting to regulate who can get married. We enforce restrictions on contracts. We make it more difficult for firms to operate because there's safety rules that make it expensive to hire new workers. There's so many regulations that are based on the idea that government should do this. We can't really trust people. Let's let government do it. Problem with choice, and it's hard for us to get used to this, problem with choice is that some people are going to make bad ones.
Tocqueville said that he thought the problem in France, the problem that he saw politically in France, came about because people as individuals in a democracy seem to see the extent of the necessity of their participation, of their civic participation in government, is to vote once every 4 years. And having done that, they just lament the consequence. Damn, it happened again. It still sucks. Well, if the extent of your participation is voting once every 4 years, it's your fault that it sucks. There's other things that you have to do, and it's not just, well, let's vote every 2 years. Form organizations and work on problems.
Voters often are looking, and I find this as a candidate for governor all the time. I'll go and talk to some people and they say, you know, this libertarian thing, it really makes sense to me. I think that we should have smaller government and government should get off our backs and should get out of our bedrooms. And then I'll say, well, and are there any questions? Somebody will raise their hand and their first question is, well, what are you going to do for me? You've missed the point. The point is, I'm going to stop having government prevent you from being able to realize your dreams. But government can't help you do that by giving you other people's money. The French economist Frédéric Bastiat said that the state is the fiction by which each of us aspires to live at the expense of all of us. There's a contradiction there. If you say, I'm going to take tax money from everybody and give each one back more than I took away, that can't happen. And yet that's what we expect from government. So in some ways, I found it disappointing to talk to people that say, yes, I understand what you're saying, I agree. What are you going to do for me?
What does it mean to vote the low? The lesser of two evils. All of you do that, or have done it. You go and you think, oh gosh, maybe there's another candidate. But it would be horrible if A wins. Whereas if B wins, it would only suck. So I'm going to vote for B. Because I would hate to be responsible for A winning. Well, that's a strange sort of logic, and I actually have a lot of questions about it. So now I'm to the second category, which is, what about wasting your vote? If you vote for a third party, aren't you just wasting your vote? Well, in North Carolina, nearly half of the races for the General Assembly only have one person. There's only a Democrat or only a Republican. So if libertarians are able to run next time more candidates, it wouldn't be true that we're a third party. In many cases, we're a second party. But suppose there really are two candidates. One that you loathe and detest, and one whom you dislike. And then a libertarian, who you say, when I look at the issues, that's actually what I would like to do. I care about liberty, I care about personal responsibility, and I care about the fact that I'm going to be secure in my person and my property and my own conscience without being told what to think in a public school system that tries to indoctrinate my children into a collectivist ideology. So sure, I like all those things, but I'm going to vote for the one that I merely dislike, because I hate to be responsible. Does one person's vote matter? Well, not in that sense that it's going to determine the outcome, because there are no ties that races this size. Still, it does matter. You're going to the polls to try to send to the people in Raleigh or the people in Washington a signal. And one signal you can send is, I am entirely satisfied with the choices that you are presenting. These two choices, they're terrific. I'll pick one of them, and the other one would be okay. Or you can say, hell no, I am not satisfied with the choices that are being offered. I'm going to vote for this third choice. I'm going to say, maybe this person has issue positions I care about, and that's great. Or that I'm just dissatisfied with the choices that are presented by the two state-sponsored parties. So it's your only chance to send a signal. The only time you waste a vote is if you don't vote at all, or if you pass up the chance to send a signal when you could have cast a vote that meant something. Libertarians this time, in order to stay on the ballot, need 2%. Your vote really matters. I only need 2% to win. I really, really hope to win and get 51%. And I could do that job. This is a job I have trained for much of my life.
Libertarians are for the American dream, for everyone. We want to try to reestablish the sense that free and responsible individuals working together can accomplish almost anything. For a society of free and responsible people, in fact, nothing is impossible. The problem that we have is we have come to depend on government. We've said, I'm going to hang back, I'm going to wait until government provides this. The fact is there are many people who work for government who really want to try to do the right thing. But wouldn't it be amazing if one person or two people knew what you needed? If they knew what sort of restaurant you wanted to go to, what sort of shoes you wanted to buy. Most of us think, yes, we're going to do those things privately. I think it'd be just as remarkable if some government bureaucrat in Raleigh knew what sort of education your child needed. What we need is a system where parents have both the responsibility and the financial power to do what they think is right. And if we get back to that sense of responsibility, which is what libertarians stand for, we're actually the true American founding conservatives. We're the ones who think that individuals left to their own devices, but given the resources that they need through education and working in a society where they have access to investment and private credit, can achieve almost anything.